On November 5, 2025, China commissioned its most advanced aircraft carrier with appropriate fanfare. The Fujian, a massive 80,000-ton warship equipped with electromagnetic catapults supposedly rivaling American Ford-class technology, was officially handed over to the People's Liberation Army Navy in Sanya, Hainan Province. Xi Jinping attended in person. State media celebrated this as a defining moment in China's naval modernization. The Fujian represented China's arrival as a true blue water navy capable of projecting power across the Pacific. Exactly 42 days later, on December 17, 2025, the Fujian was spotted transiting the Taiwan Strait heading north. It was not conducting exercises, not deploying with a battle group, not demonstrating the combat capability China had spent years touting. Instead, it was sailing empty, with no aircraft on board and no personnel beyond essential crew, back toward Jiangnan shipyard in Shanghai. The carrier that was supposed to validate China's technological prowess and challenge American naval dominance had broken down after barely a month of commissioned service. It needed to return to the shipyard that built it for repairs. Today, we are going to examine what went wrong with the Fujian, why this breakdown reveals fundamental problems with China's naval modernization program, and what it means when your most advanced warship cannot stay operational for more than 6 weeks. By the end, you will understand why rushed political timelines and propaganda requirements create military hardware that looks impressive in commissioning ceremonies but fails spectacularly when actually used. Let us start with the timeline, because the dates tell a damning story all by themselves. The Fujian's maiden sea trials began on May 1, 2024, International Workers' Day, a politically significant date in China that was almost certainly chosen for symbolic rather than technical reasons. Over the following 18 months, the carrier conducted 8 to 9 sea trials, accumulating just over 100 days at sea in total. For comparison, the USS Gerald R. Ford, America's newest carrier, which also uses electromagnetic catapults, conducted sea trials for over 2 years, accumulating hundreds of days at sea before commissioning. The Ford completed over 4,100 consecutive catapult launches during testing to verify the system worked reliably. Even then, the Ford faced significant challenges that took years to fully resolve. China compressed this entire process dramatically. Just 18 months after maiden sea trials began, with only 100 days of testing completed, the Fujian was declared ready for commissioned service. The November 5th ceremony was elaborate: military bands, speeches, flag raising, the works. Xi Jinping's personal attendance signaled this was a priority achievement for the regime. 42 days later, the carrier was heading back to the shipyard. According to reports, on December 17th, the Fujian transited the Taiwan Strait, traveling north. Taiwanese defense officials noted the transit and reported the ship was carrying no aircraft and minimal personnel, essentially a skeleton crew sufficient to move the vessel, but not to operate it as a warship. On December 19th, Chinese state media outlet CCTV made vague reference to Taiwanese media reports about the carrier's movement, but provided zero explanation for why the ship had left port or where it was heading. The destination, according to defense analysts tracking the ship's course, was Jiangnan shipyard in Shanghai, the facility that built the Fujian in the first place. The only plausible reason for an aircraft carrier to return to its construction shipyard immediately after commissioning is repairs significant enough that they cannot be handled at the naval base where the ship is stationed. This is catastrophic from a credibility perspective. Imagine if the USS Gerald R. Ford had been commissioned and then returned to Newport News Shipbuilding 6 weeks later for major repairs. The political and reputational fallout would be enormous. For China, it is even worse because the entire Fujian program has been positioned as evidence that China has mastered advanced carrier technology and closed the gap with American naval capability. Now, let's examine what likely went wrong, because the specific system that probably failed reveals everything about China's approach to military modernization. The Fujian's marquee feature, the technology that justifies all the hype, is its electromagnetic aircraft launch system, or EMALS. This is the same basic technology used on America's Ford-class carriers. Instead of steam catapults that have launched carrier aircraft for decades, EMALS uses electromagnetic linear motors to accelerate aircraft down the flight deck. EMALS offers several advantages over steam catapults: smoother acceleration that is less stressful on aircraft airframes, more precise control over launch energy for different aircraft types, faster reset time between launches, and reduced maintenance requirements once the system is fully mature. It is genuinely advanced technology that represents the future of carrier aviation. It is also extraordinarily complex, requiring massive electrical power systems, sophisticated control software, and precision engineering throughout the launch mechanism. The USS Ford's EMALS experienced numerous problems during development and early deployment. There were failures during launches, software glitches, and reliability issues that required years of work to resolve. And that was with American engineering expertise, decades of carrier operational experience, extensive testing protocols, and tolerance for failure and iteration. China had none of those advantages, but tried to compress the entire development timeline into a fraction of the time. According to defense analysts familiar with Chinese carrier programs, the most likely failure involves the power generation and distribution systems that feed the electromagnetic catapults. Each catapult launch requires a massive surge of electrical power, equivalent to what a small town would use, delivered in seconds, and then immediately recharged for the next launch. The ship's power system must handle these enormous spikes repeatedly while also powering all the ship's other systems. The Fujian uses conventional steam turbine propulsion, a Soviet-era power plant design completely unsuitable for the precision power demands of electromagnetic catapults. It is like trying to power a supercomputer with an old diesel generator. It might work briefly under ideal conditions, but sustained operations create stresses the system was not designed to handle. Other potential failure points include the catapult control software, the electromagnetic coils in the launch system itself, and the structural mounts that anchor the catapult machinery to the ship's frame. Any of these could cause failures significant enough to require shipyard-level repairs. The telling detail is that the ship sailed north empty, no aircraft and minimal crew. This suggests the problem is not just one system that can be worked around. It is a fundamental issue that makes the ship non-operational as an aircraft carrier. Let's talk about why this breakdown was predictable, because the pattern is identical to what we've seen across Chinese military programs. The Fujian's problems mirror its own commissioning timeline perfectly. Remember, this carrier was delivered after just 44 days between completing trials and official handover, a timeline so compressed it suggests political deadlines overriding technical readiness. We analyzed this exact pattern in the video about the Fujian's original commissioning. China's defense procurement operates on political calendars, not engineering timelines. Systems are declared ready not when testing validates their performance, but when leadership needs a propaganda victory. The November 5th commissioning date was likely chosen months in advance for political significance. Whether the carrier actually worked became secondary to meeting that symbolic deadline. This creates a perverse incentive structure where everyone involved has reason to hide problems and exaggerate readiness. The shipyard wants to claim success and receive payment for completed work. The Navy leadership wants to show Xi Jinping that his investment is paying off. Defense Ministry officials want to demonstrate China's military modernization is on track. Local party officials want to show their region is contributing to national strength. Nobody wants to be the person who says, actually, we need another year of testing when the commissioning ceremony is already scheduled and Xi Jinping's attendance is confirmed. So they commission the ship knowing problems exist, planning to fix them later, hoping nothing breaks catastrophically before they can address the issues quietly. Except things did break. Fixing an aircraft carrier's electromagnetic catapult system is not something you can do quietly at a naval base. It requires specialized facilities, equipment, and expertise available only at the shipyard. Now, let us examine what this means for China's broader carrier program and naval modernization goals. China now operates 3 aircraft carriers: Liaoning, a refurbished Soviet hull; Shandong, China's first domestically built carrier using conventional steam catapults; and Fujian, the advanced EMALS carrier that just broke down. There are reports of a 4th carrier under construction, possibly nuclear-powered, but that is years away from completion. Of these 3 carriers, only Liaoning and Shandong are actually operational right now, and both use older steam catapult technology with all its limitations. The Fujian, the carrier that is supposed to represent China's technological leap forward, is out of service for repairs after 42 days. This has direct implications for China's ability to project naval power. Aircraft carriers are not just prestigious symbols. They are complex operational systems that require years of crew training, countless hours of flight operations practice, and continuous maintenance to keep them battle-ready. Every day the Fujian sits at a shipyard instead of conducting flight operations is a day China's carrier aviation expertise is not developing. Compare this to American carrier operations. The United States Navy has been operating carriers continuously since World War II. They have refined every aspect of carrier operations through decades of real-world experience. When problems emerge, like the Ford class's initial EMALS issues, there is an institutional knowledge base for diagnosing and solving them. China is trying to compress 80 years of carrier operational experience into 2 decades. They are doing that while also developing the technology, building the ships, training the crews, and creating the support infrastructure, all simultaneously and all under political pressure to show rapid progress. The result is ships that look impressive in commissioning ceremonies but break down when actually used. Now let us talk about the propaganda problem this creates, because the optics are devastating. Chinese state media celebrated the Fujian's commissioning extensively. Articles described it as proof of China's technological prowess. Videos showed the massive ship with its clean lines and modern design. Officials made statements about China's growing naval capability and readiness to defend national interests. Then, 6 weeks later, the carrier was sailing north for repairs with no explanation from official sources. CCTV's December 19th reference to Taiwanese media reports was telling. They acknowledged the ship's movement because Taiwan had already reported it publicly, but they provided no context about why the ship was moving or where it was going. This creates a credibility problem. If China cannot keep its most advanced carrier operational for even 2 months, what does that say about other systems? If the flagship example of naval modernization is already broken, what is the actual state of the rest of the fleet? International observers notice these things. Defense analysts in the United States, Japan, South Korea, and throughout the region track Chinese naval movements carefully. When the Fujian sailed north empty, every regional navy knew exactly what that meant. Something broke, and China could not fix it at their naval base. This undermines the deterrent effect China wants its carrier fleet to provide. Deterrence requires credibility. Adversaries must believe you can actually use the weapons you have. A carrier that breaks down after 6 weeks does not deter anyone. It reassures them that China's naval capability is less mature than the propaganda suggests. Now let us examine the systemic problem this breakdown reveals. The pattern is consistent across Chinese military programs. Impressive appearances masking fundamental capability gaps. The J-20 fighter looks advanced but struggles with engine reliability. The Type 055 destroyer looks formidable but has never been tested in actual combat. The Fujian carrier looks like a technological marvel, but it cannot stay operational for 2 months. The common thread is that China optimizes for propaganda value rather than operational capability. Systems are designed to look modern and technologically advanced in photos and videos. They are built to meet political deadlines and commissioned with elaborate ceremonies. The unglamorous work of making them actually function reliably gets compressed, rushed, or skipped entirely. This is not unique to military hardware. We have seen the same pattern in China's high-speed rail accidents, building collapses, and infrastructure failures. When political pressure demands rapid results and acknowledging problems is dangerous, you get systems that look fine until they are actually stressed. The difference with military hardware is that the consequences are not just embarrassing, they are strategically significant. A carrier that cannot operate is not just a propaganda problem. It is a capability gap that affects regional balance of power and China's ability to project influence. So what does this mean for China's 2027 timeline and military readiness goals? Xi Jinping has made clear that 2027, the 100th anniversary of the People's Liberation Army, is a critical deadline for achieving key military capabilities. The implication is that China should be ready for major military operations, potentially including an invasion of Taiwan by that date. Meeting that timeline requires functioning carrier groups capable of sustained operations. Carriers need to be able to launch and recover aircraft in combat conditions. Crews need to be trained to operational proficiency. Systems need to work reliably under stress. The Fujian breakdown suggests China is not anywhere close to this level of readiness with its most advanced carrier. If it cannot keep the ship operational during peacetime for 6 weeks, how would it perform during actual combat operations when systems are pushed to their limits? This adds to a growing list of indicators that China's 2027 readiness goals are unrealistic. The rocket force corruption scandal revealed strategic missiles filled with water instead of fuel. Defense industry revenue collapsed 31% as procurement froze due to corruption purges. And now the flagship carrier breaks down immediately after commissioning. Each of these individually would be concerning. Together, they paint a picture of military modernization that is far behind the official narrative. Let's address what this does not mean, because it is important to avoid overconfidence. This does not mean China's military is incompetent or non-threatening. China has real capabilities built up over decades of investment. It has the world's largest navy by hull count, and it has developed advanced missiles, submarines, and air defense systems. The problems with the Fujian do not negate everything else. What it means is that there is a significant gap between claimed capability and actual operational readiness. China wants to project an image of a military ready to challenge American dominance in the Western Pacific. The reality appears to be a military still struggling with basic operational reliability of its most advanced systems. It also does not mean carriers are useless or that China was wrong to build them. Carriers are valuable strategic assets when they work. The problem is not the concept, it is the execution. Trying to compress decades of development into a few years, driven by political timelines rather than engineering reality, produces exactly this outcome: ships that look modern but do not work properly. So what is the bottom line? China spent billions developing the Fujian. They invested in electromagnetic catapult technology. They built what appears to be a modern, capable aircraft carrier. They commissioned it with Xi Jinping in attendance. and 42 days later, it was sailing north for shipyard repairs. This is not bad luck. This is not a minor setback. This is the inevitable result of rushing complex military systems to meet political deadlines, prioritizing propaganda over operational reality, and building a defense procurement system where acknowledging problems is more dangerous than hiding them. The Fujian's breakdown reveals something fundamental. You cannot shortcut the development timeline for advanced military technology. You cannot compress years of testing into months. You cannot skip the unglamorous work of making systems reliable just to hit a commissioning date. When you try, you get exactly this, a $13 billion showpiece that breaks down after 6 weeks. China's most advanced carrier is heading back to the shipyard while American carriers conduct operations worldwide. The gap China was supposed to be closing just got wider. Every defense analyst watching understands exactly what this means. China's carrier program looks more impressive in propaganda videos than it performs in actual operations. The Fujian might eventually be fixed. The systems might eventually work reliably. China might eventually develop the institutional expertise to operate advanced carriers effectively. But that takes time, experience, and tolerance for failure and iteration that China's political system does not allow. Until that changes, expect more breakdowns, more quiet returns to shipyards, and more gaps between appearance and reality. Don't forget to subscribe for more analysis on the difference between military propaganda and operational capability. Thanks for watching.